Hello, friends. Welcome to the Global Leadership Podcast, where leaders of all sorts come together to expand their influence to grow in healthy and holistic ways. Happy New Year to you, and well done to you for starting your year by investing in your leadership through the simple act of listening to this podcast. I've seen this to be so very true in my own life, that what I put my mind into has such a big impact on my mindset. And you are intentionally starting your year by filling your mind with content that will challenge and expand you as a leader. So cheers to you. I am celebrating you that you are here. We are so delighted to have you. Before we jump into our topic for this month, I wanted to let you know about a sale that we have that will help you intentionally invest in your leadership this month. From now until January 14th, you can get up to $80 off of our 365 resources. And if you don't know what those are, it's our library of excellent world-class leadership videos. If you lead a team, we actually create leadership modules each month for you that you can take your team alongside and provide an easy and enriching way for your team to grow together. Or if you're focusing on your leadership individually, you can access Summit content videos since 2019. Each month, we focus on one topic in 365 to help you grow in that area as a leader, and we'll send you monthly reminders to keep you on track, because I know I need the monthly reminders. It's a great way to focus on your leadership growth year round, because you guys, you can't just grow in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. We need all 365 days to continue our journey in leadership. So in January, we're going to be starting out the year by focusing on purpose and what it means to be a purposeful leader, right? What a good January topic. It's a perfect way to recenter ourselves on what our purpose is. And today, David Ashcraft, the president and CEO of the GLN, and I are chatting about our own journeys to live purposeful lives. So if you are ready to recenter or recommit, or maybe even rediscover, because it can change, what your purpose is, then let's dig in together, because God has a purpose and intent for you as a leader. Hey, David, welcome to January 2025.
Thank you, Whitney. Welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. David, I'm still getting to know you. So are you a New Year's resolution person?
I am not. For some reason, have never really gotten into those. Maybe because I did early on and I failed very quickly. So no, I don't bother.
So you're just like a consistent moving into the new year, going to keep going after the same, just everyday goals.
Pretty much, yeah. Fairly boring that way.
Okay, no, David, I think there's so much. I'm actually not a New Year's resolution person either.
You're not, okay.
I'm not. And I think we need to have confetti poppers for consistency. That's what I'm here
I like that. That would be good.
The confetti poppers for just the people that are like just trucking into the new year, going to keep going after the same goals.
Ruth, my wife, says I'm steady Eddie. I just keep going on the same speed, same pace all the time. So, yeah.
I love that. That's so good. Now, is Ruth, I'm curious, because my husband he's a great goal setter and he achieves his goals. Is Ruth the same as you, no goals, or does she set New Year's goals?
Yeah, I don't think either of us set goals. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, my husband is really, really good at it, and I always admire him for it. He'll really set something, and he becomes steady after that one goal that he sets and moves through the year.
That's good.
Well, what I do know about you, David, though, after getting to work alongside you and learn from you over the past year now, kind of gotten to be with you, is you are a person of deep intention and of purpose. So what would you say, David, what is the purpose of your life, would you say?
Of my life. So not even just the organizations, but my life.
Yeah, of your life.
Oh, okay. That gets different then. So what I was going to say to you, Whitney, is when I think of purpose, in some ways, I was a business major in college. And so I tend to think sometimes in business terms, and it's almost like, what business are you in? And why do you exist as an organization? Or if you throw it to my life, why do I exist as an individual? And so I hope that I exist to please God, to honor God. I am very passionate about introducing people to Jesus, if that's possible. So I would say that's probably the main focus of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it turns out you've been in organizations that really do that too. So that's nice
And
alignment.
then it goes to different levels because my purpose then focuses on Ruth and my marriage, and then my kids and my grandkids. So it kind of cascades down from there.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. David, there's people out there that are listening to you say that and they're thinking, "Oh, I would love to have that kind of clarity. Like I would love to have that kind of sense of mission for my life or even my organization." But let's say for their, I mean, well, you can go either way, life or organization. So for those people that are hearing you with such clarity, what advice would you give them to kind of land on a purpose that lasts?
Oh, I think Whitney, one of the things I've observed, both in individuals and in organizations, is we try to do too many things. And so we try to say the purpose of our organization is, and then there's 20 different things. And it's like, you're probably not going to be good at that many. And so what are the two or three? What's the one thing that you can really zoom in on? And so I would say simplicity is probably a big part of it. Later in my life, I've focused more on saying, okay, how can I come around other pastors and leaders and help them? And so it's changed as I've gone along, but it's still real simple. It's pretty basic. How do I help leaders be better? Which fits real well with the GLN, where we just say when the leader gets better, everyone wins. And so that works great for my kind of focus in life. So.
Gosh, I love that. That's really helpful for me, especially people too that maybe are coming into the new year with a really like a full list of things that they want to do. I think that's really helpful, David, of hey, maybe pick two or three, or maybe it's radical to say pick one, right? And really lean in on that one. And that could be life changing.
Exactly.
David, I'm curious, have you ever seen, I know I've been a part of organizations like this. I one time worked for an organization that was 80 years old, which was really cool to work in an organization where literally women were just getting the right to vote and then to move that organization all the way down the line. But there's a lot of mission drift inside of that. Have you ever seen an organization or been in an organization where you've seen mission drift or people kind of lost their sense of purpose? And if so, as a leader, how did you kind of reel people back in?
Yeah. So, yes, I've seen it in other organizations, Whitney. Ruth and I actually years ago visited a ministry in Argentina, and we knew of the same organization in the United States. They happened to do work in Argentina. When we went to Argentina, it was just very different. They didn't really know their purpose. They knew the mechanics, they knew the rules that they were to follow, they knew all the things they were supposed to do, but they had lost the sense of why they even do what they do. And it was so obvious to us that it was sad to see that. And so it was very legalistic and a lot of fighting because it was all about just doing things the right way, but they didn't know why. And so I think that happens a lot in second, third generations working in an organization where the original group, and so even when I went to LCBC, those that were there in the early days with me of the organization, we all knew exactly why we existed. But then you start bringing in new people and they may not have the same focus that you have. And so we had to keep kind of going back and revisiting the vision and saying, this is why we exist. And I think it's the main job of the leader to be the one that upholds the vision and says, sorry, that's not what our vision is about. And so you've got to be the gatekeeper of the vision.
So, little insider knowledge too for people to the GLN. David, I've learned this from you so much, and you may feel like you've been a broken record towards us that get to serve at the GLN, but you being so clear, so all of our listeners, David came on board, and David, you were really clear with like 3 big goals for us. And I think every meeting I was on with you, which is like multiple times a week, David, you would get on with us and we would chit chat and we would ideate and brainstorm and do all the things that people do inside meetings. And then you would bring us all back together and say, okay, guys, it's all really good. Just make sure these 3 goals. And David, what you don't maybe know is that you doing that for me as a leader, I then got to go to my team and say, do the same thing. And just get really, really clear with our team about, do all the stuff and, check all the lists. But if it's not rolling up into these 3 goals, is it really necessary?
Yeah.
And so has it always been like that for you, where it's like get really, really clear and really tight? Have you learned that along the way, and how have you seen success in that, David?
Yeah, so I suppose maybe, Whitney, I learned that years ago. In the '90s, John Maxwell is when I first started to get to know about John Maxwell, and he would always. I'd go to some of his conferences. He had, back then it was cassettes. I hate to date myself that much, but on cassettes, and he'd always say, "I'm a simple man. My name is John," and kind of start that way, and then he would talk about leadership principles. And I'm really pretty simple too, Whitney. I can focus in on just one thing and say, and I can stubbornly say, now this is what we're going to focus on. Yeah. And somewhere along the way, I learned, and I think it was through the Leadership Summit, the vision leaks. And so if you don't keep repeating it, people forget. And so the mistake I watch leaders make all the time is they will spend months crafting the perfect vision statement or mission statement, and then they'll wordsmith it, and they'll go over and over and over. And once they've all got it, they'll put it up on the wall, or they'll put it on their programs. And then they forget about it. They never go back and look at it. And so for me, it's like, I don't know that we have to spend so much time getting the perfect thing down, but let's get something that's memorable that we can all remember. And then once we've got that, let's just keep repeating it over and over. And then everything we do ought to be measured against that thing. And if it's not accomplishing that thing, and it's the wrong thing, so let's stop doing it.
So good. And even to like loop where we started in this conversation of like setting that one intention, right? Or what at 1 to 2 to 3, a simple list intention for your year. And then how are you going to keep that, right? Because sometimes some of them are personal goals, right, David? Like some people just have a personal goal and some people have organizational goals. So how are you keeping that? It's a sticky note if it's personal, like, right? Keeping it in front of you. John Acuff talks all the time about just keeping those thoughts in front of you everywhere. I know that's something that I'm working on personally, but then organizationally, very much to your point, say it in every meeting, even if you feel like a broken record.
And Whitney, I think what happens, what I watch, at least my experience with our teams here at the GLN or even at LCBC, people get bored. And so they want to try new things, different things, because they're bored with your purpose or your mission. And it's like, sorry, just because we're bored doesn't mean we change what we do. Let's just keep doing the basics and we'll be successful ultimately. And Nick Saban is retired football coach. I wasn't an Alabama fan, but I was a Nick Saban fan. And he would constantly tell his players.
Thanks for the clarification. David, I'm so glad you clarified that for us. Okay.
So he would constantly tell his players, just do your job. You do your job and we'll accomplish the purpose of winning or our mission of winning. But everybody's got to do their jobs. And so part of my job as the leader of an organization is to say, okay, here's where we're going. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Now you do your job. And I've got to help everybody stay focused on their job. But again, we get bored and we do it after a while. And we think, I need to go off and do something different. And so usually it's not just satisfaction with maybe that the person gets to do something different. They want the organization to do something different. And if you as a leader allow that to happen, all of a sudden you've drifted and you're not going to accomplish what you were set out to accomplishing in the first place. And so that's where it's the leader's job to avoid that drift and make sure that doesn't happen.
David, I'm so curious so what you just described to me, and I just want to hear if there's a person in your life that you saw imitating that for you. When you just said that to me, I immediately thought of my dad, Rick Langdon, and he showed me what it was like every single day to get up, go to work. It was hard. I knew when it was hard, even as a kid. Like, he didn't tell me everything, but I knew that work was hard. It was hard work to show up and do tough stuff and have hard conversations. And his work ethic, you just said vision leaked. His work ethic leaked to me, just watching him do that. Was there someone for you that imitated that for you, either in your family or someone outside, of just like leaking that work ethic of working hard?
Yeah, good question. It's something that I've had since I was young. So I suppose both my mom and dad. I wouldn't have really thought of it that way, but I would guess it's probably them.
Yeah, that's really, really neat. I know. I've always just thought if I could write a memoir, David, about anybody, it would be of my dad. And so it's always fun just to get to talk about, the people that we see and recognize and want to imitate. Just last thought, you touched on it just briefly, but there are people listening today And they are thinking, man, must be nice when your job aligns with your passion to be able to do that. So what would you recommend to that person of maybe their current 9 to 5 job isn't aligned with their passion? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I think there's sometimes, obviously, that happens where it does not align. I feel incredibly fortunate that my passions do align with my work, and I've had the opportunity to make those choices. So that's been very fortunate for me. I would think if it weren't that way, then you start looking and saying, okay, then can my 9 to 5 job provide a way for me to fulfill my passion off work hours? And so is it funding it? Is it whatever it is, so that then I can pursue that? And then then pursue it on those off hours. And so it doesn't have to be during the 9 to 5, but you can use the 9 to 5 to make it possible to chase after that passion, I would think.
Yeah, I love that, David. And the one thing that I've noticed in my stream of my life is I can take learnings from when I was a pastor's wife to what I'm doing today, right? Like just because you're 9 to 5, there's not learnings.
Yeah, and who knows that God isn't setting you up for something in the future that's going to allow you to more fully chase your passion. So who knows? And then I've heard it said, Whitney, that there's your job and what you do and your work. And then there's hobbies, and I think sometimes we mistake our passion for hobbies, and it's like, well, really, your passion is golf or whatever, and then that's more of a hobby. But you still have to work and do your real life, and so I think we just got to be thankful we've got the real jobs that then can possibly fund or make the other things possible. So.
Absolutely. That's so good, David. And I think I know you're challenging me, and I'm sure many people, maybe the ambition for this year is not a list of 10 things, but maybe the ambition is one thing for our purpose, getting really clear on it, putting up the sticky note, telling our team, just like you've told us for a year, David, and you've told many teams for many, many years, just be really clear about our vision and our purpose and go in that direction.
And then celebrate it when you are seeing strides and you're making strides and seeing advancements towards that purpose, then you celebrate it. And so it can be equally exciting as chasing after a lot of things. And to me, once you do that, Whitney, you can celebrate in a big way when you accomplish it. If you're chasing out a lot of things, either they're not going to be that important or you're not ever going to achieve any of them, so you really have no celebration. So I'd rather focus on one, celebrate each step of the way, and see success.
Gosh, that's a whole other episode, David. We could talk about celebration forever. I love celebrating. But yes, 100% celebrate, right? The small wins that get us to the big wins. And I appreciate that about you too, David, because we've been able to see that under your leadership at the GLN. So everyone who's listening, make sure you're out there celebrating every day, all your small wins. And all those small wins lead to the big wins as well, right, David?
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Whitney.
Thank you for joining me and David today to recenter ourselves on purpose. This is honestly one of my favorite topics because it is the center of everything that we do. David and I talked a lot about consistency and what it looks like to simplify our goals. And so I hope that was helpful for you because I know sometimes we can go into the year with these dynamic ambitions. I know that I have totally been there. And maybe this episode has helped given you a little bit of clarity of what it would look like to give yourself 1, 2, 3 goals that could really simplify the direction that you go in 2025. I know for me, and especially after listening and having this conversation with David, I've taken this and I've said, you know what? Where does my purpose need to go in 2025? And how I'm simplifying it for myself, and maybe this is just good jumping off ground for you, is in what ways am I going to connect with God in 2025? In what ways am I going to connect with others in 2025? And in what ways am I going to connect with my purpose, the ways that I'm uniquely wired to bring good into the world? So I'm going to keep exploring those and maybe set some goals around just those 3 items and see where that takes me with daily, consistent rhythms in a steady approach to achieving those goals. I'm not sure what your purpose might be, but hopefully you'll be able to set clear and concise goals and see where it takes you by the end of this year. Now, don't forget to check out the library of excellent leadership videos at globalleadership.org/365. We do have this on sale for you through January 14th so that you can invest in your leadership in intentional ways each month. Again, that is globalleadership.org/365. Thanks again for joining us today. We are so glad, David and I are so glad that you're a part of this community, because when the leader gets better, everybody wins.